you very much, and good evening to you. And it's a great honour to be here. And I want to pay the warmest possible tribute, if I can, in beginning, to the work of the International Olympic Truce Centre. Sometimes, you know, things and organisations and people aren't quite appreciated in their own land. And I can tell you that their work internationally is making a real difference around the world as they keep alive that vision and ideal of the Olympic truce. And it's a great honour to be here with them and to be associated with them. And I'm also particularly delighted that the British Council are supporting this excellent event. This particular motion, all the pressure is on me because, of course, we're clearly out in front. So the only way we can go is down. But I want to try and strengthen the resolve of the two-thirds in favour and make an appeal to the third of doubters. And it focuses around the three words at the core of this motion. And the three words are peace, enforcement, and inspiration. Those three words are the key elements, I would argue, of this. And if we look at peace, first of all, what is peace? Peace is more than just the absence of violence, I would contend. It is the presence of a system of justice. It is the presence of a system of education, of equality, of fairness. A way in which we can resolve our grievances, a way in which we can make our own laws that we live under. So peace is much more than the absence of violence. In terms of enforcement, if enforcement worked, then I suppose Afghanistan today would be a little bit like Switzerland, given all the resource of the international community, which has been devoted into that troubled part of the world. But it isn't. And enforcement has a great difficulty. Long after the armies of Genghis Khan, of Julius Caesar, of even Alexander the Great had disbanded, the ideas of Socrates, of Plato, of Aristotle continue to inspire us. Long after tyrants such as Hitler and Stalin and Pol Pot and Mao had slaughtered the masses, today we look to examples of the lives of Mahatma Gandhi, of Nelson Mandela, of Aung San Suu Kyi, for our example as to how we should live. So therefore, though there may be temporary setbacks, my argument is that ideals inspire us, and that element of inspiration is absolutely critical. Our chairman mentioned my walk. Before I set off on my walk, I gathered a group of friends together and I asked them what they thought about my idea of walking 3,000 miles from Olympia to London. And after a little bit of consideration, they said, Michael, we can only think of three problems. The first one is you've got the type of reputation that you get a taxi to go to the underground station, and that's only to go to Pizza Express. And therefore, we don't think you can make it, and therefore, we suggest you don't even try it. The second thing is, Michael, I'm afraid nobody has heard of the Olympic truce. And I said, and the third point? Oh, well, that's like that one. It's that nobody's ever heard of you either. But apart from that, and with that ringing endorsement going my way, I set off on the walk for truce. And again, at that point, I would submit in this debate that had there been a law which required an unfit British parliamentarian to walk 3,000 miles to honour truce, I would be the first one campaigning for its abolition. But the ideal, that dream that was there from King Iphigenia in 776 BC, that people could come together, not as Spartan, as Athenian, as Corinthian, as their different city-states, but come together united as Olympians and compete together as equals, under the same rules, under the same laws, for glory, was something that reached down the millennia to inspire me again and got me moving. And as I reached the end of my walk, towards the end, I arrived in Brussels. And with this, I will conclude. I arrived in Brussels and was asked to speak at a primary school. Now, politicians always get very nervous about addressing assemblies of primary schools. And this was the British school in Brussels. And at the end of my presentation, where I talked about walking through the different countries, they said this. One little girl put her hand up. She was 7 years old, and she said, "You've walked through 15 countries. Who were the nicest and who were the nastiest?" Now, of course, I could say that, of course, Greece was by far the most hospitable. I said, but you know what it is? I'd never really thought about it because everybody was just exactly the same. I walked along the highways in Greece and in every other country, and when I met people coming the other way, I smiled at them and they smiled back. I asked for directions and they did their best to help. I asked for accommodation and they asked for 50 euros. People were exactly the same. They loved their countries. They thought that their country was the most beautiful. They thought their culture was the most rich. They thought their fighting men were the most courageous. They thought their women were the most beautiful. Everyone thought exactly the same. And the only thing that changed was that as you approached close to the border, they would say to you in hushed tones at the final place I was staying, they would say, well, of course, you know, we're okay in this country. You can trust us, but when you go over there, watch out, because those people will rob you, they'll take their money. And of course, they had this prejudice against other countries and against other people. And I think what we need above all in the present time is that Olympic ideal of seeing ourselves as part of something which is greater than a national boundary, part of civilization, all one, exactly the same, living under the same rules, living in harmony. That is a peace which can inspire and has inspired. Thank you.